One day I would be like, all right, I'm going to stop pumping. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. It's going to be fine. And then I would have another moment of feeling like, well, then what sets me apart as his mom? Like, if I'm not breastfeeding him, if I currently cannot even be with him 24/7 because he's in the NICU, what makes me different?
Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica. So good to have you here. This is my little sister Meredith.
Hi.
She had this little baby, Jack, how long ago?
He was born on January 30th, so what, it's June now?
But he feels in my arms like newborn Wilson. So my son Wilson, who's almost 2, he was almost 10 pounds when he was born. And Jack is about 10 pounds probably now, right? This video is going to be for families who are formula feeding, and specifically for families who are grieving the fact that they cannot breastfeed. I think even if you're watching this and you are somebody who can breastfeed and does breastfeed, this might be a valuable video for you to kind of like get a behind the scenes look at what it might feel like for somebody who thought they would breastfeed or dreamt of breastfeeding and then didn't get to. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you have any input, we'd love to hear your story. If you want more of our family, you can follow me on Instagram at Jess_Hofer, and then through that you can connect to my sister.
Thank you so much for shopping Very Good Mothers Club. I love all the products. If you haven't been on their website, you should hop on there because they have some pretty amazing products.
This wasn't even a paid advertisement. She's a paying customer of Very Good. Meredith's a nurse, by the way.
Yeah.
Some of you have seen her story that she passed her NCLEX, her nursing exam, while in labor, while also helping a lady who had a heart attack.
Yeah.
She was almost on the Kelly Clarkson show. We're still waiting to hear back.
So Kelly, if you see
Hey
this.
Kelly, thanks so much for the time you almost had Meredith on the show. Will you tell us, why are you not breastfeeding? You wanted to, you aren't.
Yep.
And in that story, will you let us in on the feelings that came along with that and how you've coped? Because I feel like now you're doing a lot better than you were.
Yeah. Jack is my second baby. With my daughter, Loewy, I was able to breastfeed her for 2.5 years. I didn't.
That's so long.
That wasn't the plan. I thought, like, so many people had said, like, oh, she'll stop when she's ready. And so I just kept letting her go. And then I realized, literally one day, and she was 2.5 years old, I was like, she is never gonna stop. If I don't stop her, she will never stop. So I woke up one morning and I was like, we're done. And it was fine. She was totally fine with it. And she slept through the night that night, and that was the first night.
That was the first night she slept through the night.
Like, we had sleep trained her before, but that was the first night on her own that she slept through the night. I know.
She was just fine with it.
Imagine how I felt. That I was
did you wish you stopped earlier?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I think I could have. Yeah, like I'm in that moment. I was like, I should have stopped at a year. I should have stopped.
Well, there were different moments where, because I nursed Eloise, we were doing this at the same time. I nursed Eloise for 1 year and 8 months, which felt super long.
Yeah.
We were traveling so much, and it was like her way of coping with life. I felt like was having some milk from mom. But then when I would encourage you, if you wanted to stop, you didn't feel ready.
I think I was
scared of it.
Sad or scared about it. I mean, I feel like I was pretty scared of everything with Loewy. I wanted her to sleep. She didn't sleep. I thought if I'd stopped nursing her, she would sleep worse. She didn't sleep worse.
That's like the biggest fear. Isn't that the biggest fear, that you're just afraid your kid will sleep worse than they already do?
I think that's the fear around everything.
That's
if your kid gets sick, if you travel, if you give them a different food, like, is my kid not going to sleep?
That's my fear.
Because you just want to sleep so bad.
I'm so tired.
Just give us sleep.
Before filming this, we both had lattes with added shots. I think we're just giving you a glimpse into our motherhood. We're just so tired. Yeah, cool. Being a mom's great.
It is great. Anyway, but so after I stopped nursing Loewy 2.5 years, she slept through the night and it was totally fine. So when we were planning to get pregnant with Jack, I had in my mind, okay, I'm gonna have him. I'm gonna hopefully carry him until 40 weeks. He's gonna be breastfed. I'm gonna stop breastfeeding him at like 6 months to a year, because in my mind I was like, he doesn't need to go more than that.
And you thought you'd be back to work as a nurse, and it would be easier if other people could feed him.
Yeah, but I did have the hope that I was going to breastfeed regardless. So I just had everything in my mind planned out. I had so many expectations. So then when Jack came at 31 weeks, that was one expectation that was not met, because he came so early, and then he had to be in the NICU for 61 days. And then on top of that, when we were starting the process of teaching him how to eat by mouth,
Because previously you had a
feeding tube. Because little baby, preemie babies, they have to have a feeding tube until they're at the age that they can start to actually suck, swallow, breathe, all at once. So when we got to that point, I was able to breastfeed him. I had been pumping exclusively, which I also did not enjoy. I had mastitis a few times. It was rough. It was hard to just be pumping exclusively. I was really sad because I felt like I was doing the work, but I didn't have the precious baby there with me. So when I was waking up in the middle of the night to pump, I would get even more sad because he wasn't there, or he wasn't able to be being breastfed. So when we were able to start, I was starting to let him latch, and it'd be okay, and you have to do like really little bits, but in the beginning he would start to have episodes where his breathing and heart rate would just drop when he was trying to nurse.
Brady's?
Yeah, Brady's, yep.
Bradycardia,
and that's pretty common for preemies. And so she's holding Jack over there. His heart rate would drop when he was starting to nurse, and
so cute. I don't know what they saw.
So with the nurse's help, we decided, okay, maybe we'll spread out how often I'm trying to feed him by mouth. Like, do one feeding through his feeding tube, and the next I could try to nurse. And then it became, okay, let's try to do one feeding by feeding tube, the next feeding by bottle. It seemed like he was going backwards, not forwards, when we were trying to breastfeed. So one of the speech therapists in the NICU asked if we could get a swallow study for him. So what they did was they gave him thin liquid, like what breast milk is, thin liquid, has barium in it so they can see the liquid. So they did one with breast milk, just normal, and then they did one with thickened formula. And the scan of breast milk, they saw that it was going into his lungs, so he was aspirating. And the one with thickened formula, it wasn't. He was able to swallow it just fine. In that moment, they were like, okay, we're sorry, you can't breastfeed right now. Like, he cannot have milk from your body, but in 2 months' time, we can thicken your breast milk, but for now, he needs to be on thickened formula. And at first I was like, okay, that's great. Like, we found out what the issue was and he can be eating. That meant that I would have to keep exclusively pumping breast milk. And then when I got further clarification of when am I actually going to be able to breastfeed him if I can, they said not until 3 or 4 months after he's out of the NICU, when he has another swallow study to see if he can handle thin liquids. I was like, oh, I have to keep pumping exclusively. This was in March. He ended up getting released from the NICU in April, and then they said 3 or 4 months from then would be when we would do another swallow study to see. So I would have had to pump exclusively until then, in hopes that we could relearn how to breastfeed.
I want to say something.
Yeah.
Which would mean you would be starting your new job.
Yeah.
And then be pumping, and then be learning how to breastfeed. And you were off and on antibiotics multiple times because of, what's it called?
Mastitis.
Yeah. It was so much.
Yeah.
And she had that IUD thing. It was just all very discouraging.
Yeah.
There were a lot of tears. Okay.
There were a lot.
My interjection.
There were a lot of tears. So I took it to heart. Like, I was weighing the options. Like, okay, do this, and then do we get a lactation consultant when he's 6 or 7 months old and have them help us with his latching again, because it would all be starting from the beginning. I was going back and forth for a few days. I was still pumping during this time, and he was in the NICU, but we were giving him bottles with thickened formula. One day I would be like, all right, I'm going to stop pumping. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. It's going to be fine. And then I would have another moment of feeling like, well, then what sets me apart as his mom? Like, if I'm not breastfeeding him, if I currently cannot even be with him 24/7 because he's in the NICU, what makes me different? Besides the fact that I gave birth to him, which didn't even feel incredible because he came early, so it felt like a failure. It felt like a failed pregnancy because I couldn't carry him till term, and then a failed delivery because he had to come early. That was what had to happen. So in my mind, if I'm not breastfeeding him, I am nothing. Like, I'm not a mom. Like, how am I his mom? I just kept thinking that I am no different in his life than any other person around him, any of the nurses taking care of him. And that was really hard for me because I was already struggling with thinking that I wasn't going to be able to bond with him. It just was one thing after another. We were also realizing that he wasn't gaining weight because we had been trying to breastfeed, so he was aspirating. But then as soon as we did the formula, he was I think at 5 pounds, and he started actually to consistently start gaining weight, which was encouraging. But he was just such a little guy, so everything felt like I wasn't enough. I wasn't enough for him, or I wasn't good enough of a mom. It felt heartbreaking. So then I think one day I decided, okay, I'm gonna do bottle feeding. I'm gonna do formula with him. I'm gonna stop pumping. And then I went to the NICU and I was holding him and I got so sad. And I was like, and again, the feelings of just being nothing to him came back, and I was like, no, I need to pump. I need to do this. So I kept pumping, and I was sick. I was just really sick with mastitis. So the way that I finally decided was I just said, okay, I'm gonna just start pumping less because I was in a lot of pain from pumping. I didn't enjoy pumping, and so I just, from that one of those days, I just started pumping less. I was doing it initially every 2.5 to 3 hours, and so I said, okay, I'm gonna go 4 hours, and then I'm gonna go 5, and then as I did it, I realized I started to feel better. I didn't actually have as much pain anymore, which is surprising. And then I think after a few days, I only had to pump twice, and I felt I felt so much better. My health, I had more energy, and so that's when I decided, all right, I'm gonna, for the sake of everybody in our home, for Loewy, for David, for Jack, for myself, I was gonna choose to not pump anymore. It only took like 6 days for my milk to dry up, which I was blown away because I thought it would take so much longer because I was an over producer with milk, but once I started pumping less, it went away, and sometimes I would like leak and stuff, but I think it fully dried up at like the 7 or 8 day mark.
And what did you do with the milk you had pumped?
I have it all. I saved it. I gave some away to another mom that was unable to breastfeed but wanted her preemie baby to have breast milk in the NICU. So I have a bunch that we've been giving to him now because we can thicken it, and I will just continue to give it to him. There's this thing that everyone says now that fed is best, and I fully believe it and agree with it. But I didn't, and I was one that was saying that fed is best. Whatever way you feed your baby is the best way to feed your baby. And I didn't realize the shame and the insecurity surrounding formula feeding until I was formula feeding my baby. When Jack was finally released, and I would be like, if we were just going to a doctor's appointment or something with him and I was giving him a bottle, I felt ashamed and I felt insecure that people were probably wondering why I wasn't breastfeeding him. And even comparing myself to other moms that I would see out, I felt less than. Almost like I wanted to explain to them, like, oh, I can't breastfeed, like this is why I can't, or I'm not pumping anymore and this is why. So I didn't realize the stigma around formula feeding that a lot of people talk about. It really is real, and there really is shame and insecurity attached to it. First of all, I want to just say that is real, and so anyone that has experienced that, I'm sorry that you've experienced that, because even though there is a world and a community of people saying fed is best, there is still somehow the pressure of saying that breastfed is best, and I think we still need to encourage those that are formula feeding that it really is okay, that it really is fed is best. I didn't understand it until I was in it.
So what helped you then? What got you through?
It all felt bad because I was adding to it that I wasn't going to be able to bond with him. When he came home and he would cry and he wouldn't stop crying, but as soon as I held him, he stopped. And so I realized that we do have a bond. Like, now he's been out of the NICU for a couple months and I feel more bonded to him than ever, and it feels like a similar, different because it's a different baby, but how it was with Loewy. Me not breastfeeding him was not affecting my love for him or the way that he, as a baby, was interacting with me. What I would have had to do if I would have kept pumping until his next swallow study, I would have had to bottle feed him and then pump right after and freeze that milk, so the whole process would have been really long.
And this baby has reflux, so she already has to hold him up for a long time after he eats.
In the middle of the night.
Yeah, and he spends a lot of time in arms, yours or somebody else's. So it just would have lengthened all of that.
Yeah.
I think that's a practical benefit.
Yeah, that is a
What
practical
about
benefit.
weight gain or weight loss during breastfeeding? I feel like your body is actually doing really well.
So so this is interesting. Some people lose weight right after having baby from breastfeeding. I was not one of those people. I didn't lose the baby weight that I had gained with Loewy until 2.5 years later when I stopped breastfeeding. That's when I lost weight. And somehow when I stop pumping or breastfeeding, my body just seems to just feel better. I have more energy. I was able to work out again because of the energy. Just more like myself. So that was another benefit. Another huge benefit was that I see a psychiatrist regularly, and some of my previous medications that I had been prescribed to help with depression and anxiety, I was not able to take while pregnant or breastfeeding. And so the plan was with my psychiatrist, after I was done breastfeeding 1.5 years or however long I was going to, then we could restart up those medications. But through this whole process with Jack, I was really down. I was feeling really down, and so as soon as I stopped pumping and I made the decision that I was going to, my psychiatrist started up these anxiety medications again, and it really, really, really helped. I am such an advocate for getting help for mental health.
Yeah.
So
you do a good job.
Yeah.
Talking to your counselor every week.
Yeah. So I talk to a counselor every week. I have a psychiatrist. But that was huge. That was such a relief also that I could just get more support for what felt really hard. Another benefit is when you are formula feeding, you know what your baby is getting all the time. The nutrients doesn't change. I feel like when I was breastfeeding Loewy, I would worry, I ate this. Is this going to upset her stomach? I don't want to eat spicy food or broccoli or whatever because you don't want your baby to get gas or anything like that. But with him being formula fed, I don't have to worry about that because he's getting the same nutrients that he needs for every bottle, and I can
you know the amount. Where when you're breastfeeding, it's a bit mysterious.
Yeah, and so I can eat however much spicy food I want, and that's been great. Also, when you are breastfeeding, which is amazing, if you're solely breastfeeding and not pumping so that someone else can bottle feed the baby, whenever the baby needs something, you're the one that everyone hands the baby to because you're the one, you do it. And there are some people that handle it really well and do pump and let other people feed the baby, but in my case with Loewy, I just was the one because she also didn't want to take a bottle ever. But with him being formula fed, it's been really nice because a lot of people have been able to help, but also just have the opportunity to
connect with him.
Yeah, connect with him.
He slept over at my house the other day. They're here visiting in California, and I got to have him for a whole night. And that was so cool because I was able to feed him. So when he was hungry, I could take care of him, and he got to sleep.
Yeah, and even when the whole IUD thing happened and I had to be at the hospital overnight, unknowingly that was going to happen. David's parents were visiting, and they were able to have him overnight and feed him, and it was fine. It wasn't like a traumatic thing for him. So just having a bit more flexibility and have other people included in the feeding journey has been really great.
Yeah, the reason why I want her to share these positives is not to then make breastfeeding seem like a negative thing or something, but really just to affirm the people who are in a similar position to her. That could be foster mothers, adoptive mothers, moms who for whatever reason cannot pump. We have a really close friend who couldn't pump, couldn't breastfeed. Every time she tried, it was bloody, like the baby was getting blood in her mouth. It was really traumatizing for the family, and she ended up, I think the baby was 1 week old, determining she wasn't going to be able to breastfeed that baby, and she went and cried and drank a glass of wine and prayed and grieved, and then determined this baby will be formula fed. And I think it's really important for moms like that to be able to count the blessings, sort of like count the positives of formula feeding, because there are a lot, and it's okay to enjoy those. You don't have to feel crappy because you didn't get to do it the way you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
The camera just turned off, so let's end this. Anything you want to tell them?
Good job. You're doing an incredible job feeding your baby, however that is. You're doing amazing.
Yeah.
And
We believe in you.
We believe in
Thank
you
you
so
for
much.
being so kind and supportive.
Yes.
To my sister and her sweet little baby who's sleeping right here. Okay, we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.